share this to my group really quick. What's up? It's Friday. We gonna do some makeup and tell a Bible story. It's like my favorite day. It's my new thing. I do this on Friday now. I did it one time and everybody liked it, so I do it now. And excuse me while I scratch my face probably the entire time because the allergies in this house is real. We've been sneezing and our noses are itchy, and Tegan even has like a bump on her gums because allergies. But anyway, today we're going to talk about Daniel from the Bible. Like, anybody who grew up in the South, because y'all, this is the Bible Belt, y'all probably all know about Daniel in the lion's den. We probably all heard that story, right? I know I grew up hearing that story. And like we know, he went in the lion's den. The lions didn't eat him. That's what we know. That's what most people know. But like, there's so much more. And we're going to talk about it. And let me preface this by saying that I feel like a lot of times people think, oh, well, the people in the Bible, yeah, they had Jesus. Like, you know, obviously it was easy for them to believe in God because they had Jesus. But this is the Old Testament. Jesus hadn't come yet. Not even like a little bit. Not even close. So they had to believe in God the same way we believe in God. By faith. Okay? So just know that while you're listening to the story. But the story of Daniel and the whole book of Daniel happened. There was a king. His name was Nebuchadnezzar. And y'all probably like, where have I heard that name before? There's a whole Christmas story about, and there's this guy named Nebuchadnezzar. Okay. Totally different thing. But there was a king. His name was Nebuchadnezzar, and he had requested that he wanted a bunch of young Israelites to come and live at his palace. Okay, not just any. He wanted perfect ones, like really handsome, no physical defects, really smart, and like ones that came from like good, noble families. So he requested that they go out and find these Israelites and bring them to his palace, and he wanted them to live there, and he was going to teach them his ways and his language and his customs and raise them up, basically. That's what he wanted. So they go out, they find a group of them, and among them are Daniel and his 3 friends, okay? So there you go. They live at the palace. And what they were doing was feeding these young men food from the king and wine from the king. But Daniel and his friends were like, we don't want your wine and your food from the king. Like, we don't want that. That doesn't feel right to us. He was really close to God. And he asked his little like trainer guy, the guy that was overseeing all the young men, like, can we please just have vegetables and water, and that's it, and can we just please forfeit the food and the wine from the king? And the guy was like, I don't feel comfortable with that. Y'all are going to look really skinny and look sickly, and you could even die from, not having enough nutrition. And then the king's going to blame me, and it's going to be my fault, and he's going to kill me. And Daniel was like, well, how about this? How about you give it a chance? How about you trust me just for 10 days and let us have just vegetables and water for 10 days. And if you don't think we look good, then that's fine, but just give us a chance. So he's like, all right. So he let them do that. For 10 days, they just had vegetables and water, and he didn't make them eat the food from the king or drink the wine from the king. But the rest of them did, just Daniel and his 3 friends. And then after that 10 days, he takes them to the king, and the king looks at him, at all the boys, and he picks out Daniel and his 3 friends as looking the best and being the best at everything, really, above all of them, and chose to keep those 4. Just those 4. And does away with the rest of them. And because of this, because Daniel was faithful and because Daniel stuck to his convictions, basically, and his 3 friends, he blesses Daniel with the ability to have visions or decipher dreams, which was a big deal back then, okay? And so he stays there. They all stay there for, this is the first year or reign of that king. Well, in the second year of the reign of that king, Nebuchadnezzar, he has a dream. And so he brings in all of his quote-unquote wise men, magicians, whatever, all the people that the king knew or thought could decipher his dream. He woke up perplexed by this dream, knowing that it meant something profound, but he just didn't know what, and he was stressed. Like, he couldn't sleep anymore. He had to know what this dream meant, and he called upon all these guys to tell him. But because he had trust issues or whatever, he didn't tell the guys his dream. He said, no, since y'all so smart, and since y'all are supposedly like all-knowing and can tell me everything, y'all tell me what the dream was, and then I'll know that you're right. I'm not even going to tell you the dream. You tell me what I dreamed, and then I'll know that you're telling me the truth, basically. And the guys are like, the wise men and the magicians and all that, they were like, you're asking us something impossible. No man can do that. You're asking us something that no one can do. And so the king is furious. He goes, fine. Then he orders all the high up men, them included, which also included Daniel and his 3 friends, because mind you, remember he had brought them in and placed them like high up a year ago. He ordered them all to die. He's like, I'm mad. I'm ordering y'all all to die. So word gets back to Daniel that this decree has been placed, and he's like, what's happening? Like, what's going on? And the same little trainer guy that had, trained them and like brought them up during that time told him, listen, this is what happened. The king had a dream and no one could tell him about it. So what does Daniel do? He prays, because not everyone in the kingdom was Christian, okay? Not everyone believed in God, but Daniel did. Daniel and his 3 friends did. And this was more of like a you worship the king kind of place, not a you worship God. And so Daniel prays to God, and he's like, listen, can you please help me in this situation? Help me decipher what's happening with the king so I can diffuse the situation. And God grants him that ability. He has a vision of what's going on in the king's mind, and he goes to the king and he tells him, like, wait, like, give me a chance. Let me tell you what your dream meant. And the king's like, okay, go ahead. And so Daniel tells him. The dream itself is basically, hey, 4 kingdoms are going to rise up. You're one of them. Blase, like, you need to put God first. And Daniel tells the guy his dream in detail, even though he hadn't told him about the dream yet. And so he believes Daniel. And he's like taken back big time, because, like, who can do that? No one. And Daniel tells him, like, I do not have no special abilities. God, he gives all the credit to God. And he tells him, God showed me this. And he's humble the entire time. And so from then, the king places Daniel and his 3 friends high up, and he decides not to kill all those people, and he declares that Daniel's God, the God of heaven, is what they call it in the book, because there was other gods that they prayed to, the God of silver, the God of gold, the God of wood, whatever. They had other gods in their mind. And he said, listen, your God is good. Your God is obviously real, and we're putting him first. That's what we're doing. And so then put it on a couple more years. And so the three friends that I keep referring to of Daniel are Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Okay, yeah, they had weird names. This is Old Testament times, okay? This is actually not their real names. That's what they chose to call them once they got there to the palace, okay? But anyway, that's not important. So, mind you, these four people, Daniel and his three friends, are high up in the system at this point, okay? You have to think not everybody's happy about that. Okay, there's other people who have been there with the king, hey T, who have been there with the king, putting in their little work, loving the king, doing the most for the king, who weren't even as high up as them now. And they're probably not happy about that, right? So, this king, mind you, a year or so goes by, and this, after Daniel deciphered his first dream, he had said, hey, your king, your God is everything. We're gonna put your God first. But he didn't mean that. He obviously didn't mean that, because then he makes this golden statue, this big golden statue in the middle of the palace, and he tells everyone, listen, what we're going to do is we're going to bow down to the statue. And it doesn't say in the book of Daniel where Daniel is at this time. So I don't know where he is, but he ain't there. He isn't right there in this moment. But right there in the moment when he built the statue and he tells everybody, hey, this is what we're about to do. We're about to bow down to this statue. Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego was like, no, we're not doing that. I'm not doing that. Y'all can do that. But I'm not bowing down to no fake God. I'm not. And he says, like, anybody who does not publicly bow down to this statue is getting thrown into the lion's den. Okay? It's getting thrown into the furnace. I'm sorry. And, they didn't care. They did not care. And so publicly, this is happening publicly. There's people everywhere. And so everybody bows down, except for those three. Mind you, I don't know where Daniel is at this time. Maybe he was off somewhere. But those three publicly did not bow down. The king is furious. He sees them, like, just blatantly not doing what they were told. And he snatches them up. And he's like, y'all are going to the furnace. Okay, y'all. He's also so mad that he even tells them, y'all, I want the furnace to be turned up 7 times higher and hotter than it normally is. Because, y'all, they use the furnace for, like, a punishment. They didn't have jail, but I guess that's just what they did. They used a lion's den and a furnace. That's how they, like, destroyed people or, like, killed people. That's just one of their punishments. So he was ticked. He was mad. So he was like, we're turning it up. So when they go to throw these 3 men into the furnace, the guys throwing them in, the furnace was so hot that when they threw them in, the people throwing them in died because they had to get close enough to throw them in. The furnace was so hot, it killed the people throwing them in. So they threw them in. And then the king, standing back, goes, who is that 4th guy in there? Like, only threw 3 guys in there. Who's the 4th guy? And everybody's like, I don't know who's the 4th guy. And it even says in the book of Daniel, it describes the 4th guy as glowing, or like, obviously a fire's already glowing, but he was like bright. He was standing out, like you could see a silhouette of a 4th person in there that was like brighter than the fire, I guess. So perplexed, the king is like, okay, get them out. Like, something's happening. They're not dying. They're just standing there. There's a 4th person. He's weirded out. Hey, Lisa. And out comes the 3 completely unharmed. Okay? The Bible literally says they did not smell like smoke. Their hair wasn't singed. Nothing. I'm talking about they had their coats on, their hats on, everything. Nothing. Like they hadn't even been next to a fire. Mind you, this fire was so hot that when the people threw them in, those people died. That's how hot the fire was, okay? And when they come out, he's like, what's happening? Why aren't y'all dead? Like, I'm so mind blown right now. And the 3 tell him, God protected us. Like, they once again give all credit to God. And the king is so awestruck by this that he decides again, even after he had had his experience with God, okay, Your God is who we are going from henceforth. I want everybody to worship the God of heaven. That's what they always refer to him as, the God of heaven. Their God. The God that they worship, I want us all to worship them. To worship him. Okay. Sounds good, right? He had done said that once. So, after that happens, he has another dream. And who does he call on? Daniel, of course. Because, Daniel's the guy who can decipher dreams. And long story short, Daniel tells him, listen, your dream basically means that you're going to lose your mind, go off into the wilderness, and for 7 years, you're going to live like a beast. You're going to eat the grass, your nails are going to grow long, you're going to basically go into insanity because you have declared that you believe in God and you have done everything against that. So this is your punishment. That's what's going to happen. And that's exactly what happened. Here he goes. So while he's gone, dipped off into Neverland, his son becomes the king, okay? So now his son is the king. And his name is Belshazzar. Belshazzar, however you say his name, okay? The first thing that Belshazzar does as king is have a big feast. He invites all, the important people. Of course, Daniel and his 3 dudes are there amongst all these other important people and their wives and everybody. Then they bring in so back then they had these temples, these Jewish temples, and inside were all these important things that were just for God. You didn't use them for anything else. They had these gold cups that you use just for certain things, just for the temple. God forbid you do anything else with them. So this king decides his people are so important that are at this feast that he's bringing the golden cups from the temple to drink out of at this feast, because he didn't even care. And mind you, he's the son of the king before, so he had done seen the dudes in the fire. He had done seen Daniel decipher his dad's dream. He knew. He couldn't stand before God and say, I don't know that God ain't doing nothing, okay? He couldn't say that. So they start eating, they're chilling. A hand. And y'all, this sounds like a crazy story, but this really happened, okay? A hand starts writing on the wall, okay? All the color, and I'm not just making this up, it says in the Bible, all the color left the king's face, and they drop everything. They're all watching this hand right on the wall. But can't nobody read what the writing says. Nobody's, it's just foreign, if someone wrote Chinese on our wall, we'd be like, what? And so one of the people there somebody go get Daniel. He's the only one that's going to know. We already know, somebody go get Daniel. He's the only one that's going to be able to tell us what is happening right now. So here he comes. And Daniel says, well, y'all just basically disrespected God in the utmost way that you could. And you're going to die. That's what's going to happen. And so the Medes and the Persians was just kind of somebody that was their enemy. And yes. And they're going to come in and now they're going to rule this kingdom because of what you've done. And guess what happened? That night, Belshazzar died. He was slain, is what it says. So I'm assuming that the Medes and the Persians, the one who came in and took over that kingdom, they killed him. Okay, so now Darius, he's a Mede. He's the king now. Cool. But Darius knew of Daniel. He believed in Daniel's God. He knew of everything that had happened. He wasn't tripping. He knew what was up. And so he comes in. He's running the place. And one of the first things he does is put Daniel up there. He's kind of running the show a little bit. He ain't the king, but he's a little bit under the king more than almost anybody else. And that doesn't make anybody happy, right? You get a promotion, you start running the show, people be like, I'm so happy for you. But really they're hating, okay? And that's how life works. It ain't no different in 2020. So they start plotting. What can we do? What fault can we find in Daniel to like make him go away. It literally says in the Bible they could find no fault in Daniel, and they knew that the only way they could get to him was through his God. Okay, that is what you want someone to say about you. What I want someone to say about me is you can't find nothing to say about Kayla other than that she talk about Jesus too much, and I'm sick of it. Basically, that's basically what they said about Daniel. Okay, cool. So they go and appeal to the human side of the king. Okay, here he is. Yeah, he believed in Daniel's God. He's still a human. And they go to him and they're like, hey, we have all come together, which is kind of a lie because they weren't all together because Daniel was one of them and he didn't know what was going on. But they go, we've all come together and we've decided that since you are so amazing and so awesome and we love you so much, and they're just like kissing his butt basically, that we think for 30 days no one in the kingdom should be allowed to worship or pray to or love anybody but you. And he's a man. He's faulty. He's a sinner. And in that moment, he was like, you know what? That sounds wonderful. I like that. I'm for it. Not even thinking like about anything other than in that moment, he was being patted on the back and he was like, yes, whatever. So in that time, if you made a law, you had to stick to it. There wasn't no loopholes or, oh, nope, I changed my mind. So they basically tricked him into signing this law that for 30 days no one could pray to or worship anybody but the king, knowing that Daniel was obviously going to pray to his God, clearly. So they immediately leave from there, go to Daniel's house to see him praying to his God, because they knew that at morning, noon, and night that he got on his knees and prayed to his God. They had known Daniel for so long, they knew that was his routine. So they go, they see him. There ain't no cell phones. There ain't no taking a picture. They just see him. They go back to the king and they're like, King, guess what we just saw? We just saw Daniel doing exactly what you just said nobody was allowed to do. Okay, mind you, the king loves Daniel. So immediately when he hears what they have to say, he is sad. Hey, girl. Hey, Martina. He's like, great. He realizes in that moment what has happened and why they had made this, what they had done. But it's too late. So it says in the Bible that he paced back and forth and from morning until night. So this had happened in the day. He had until nighttime to execute the law, to say, to basically throw Daniel in the lion's den. That was the punishment. If you got found out doing what we said you weren't supposed to, you had to go in the lion's den. Okay, let me also add that these wasn't no regular lions. These wasn't no zoo lions, okay? These lions were there purposely to kill people. So they didn't not feed these lions. They were down in a den. They couldn't get out, and they never fed them, so they were starving. And there was a bunch of them. There wasn't like 4. There was probably like 20 or 50. Like, there was a bunch. And so you was getting ate the second your toe hit up in there, okay? But the king was upset. He liked Daniel. He didn't want this to happen. So he paces back and forth all night trying to figure out how he can, like, stop this from happening. Well, it gets nighttime. Here come the haters. And they're like, well, it's time to throw Daniel in the lion's den, so what's up? So he goes and he decrees it to happen. And he even says to Daniel, I really hope that your God protects you in the lion's den. And Daniel just is like, all right, here I go into the lion's den. And he goes. And they seal it shut with a rock. And then there's nothing they can do. They have to they usually just shut it and wait for the sun to rise the next morning, and then they go and they make sure the person is dead. That was their custom. So the king goes back to his castle or his palace, whatever. I don't know. I kind of want to call it a castle because he's a king. But anyway, he goes back. He doesn't sleep that night at all. That's what it says. He doesn't sleep. He's so upset because he liked him. And so the second the sun peaked the sky, he runs over there, makes the guards move the rock, And he hollers down in there, Daniel, are you okay? The first thing out of Daniel's mouth is, King Darius, shall you live forever, or something like that. Because when you spoke to the king, that's how you talked, okay? You didn't just be like, hey, I'm all right. That's how you talked. And he could hear him, that he was alive. And then after that, Daniel goes, hey, I'm fine. You know, my God, shut the mouths of the lions. I'm fine. So he orders them to get him out of there right now. He walks out. He's perfectly fine. And he is so, first of all, he's mad that they tricked him into this and that they made Daniel go up in there. So then he orders every single person that had anything to do with this, you, your family, your wife, your children, all of y'all. And guess what? Now y'all going in the lion's den because I'm mad. And look at Daniel. His God is who we should be worshiping. And listen, this is a trend. They had said this, 10 times? Forever? So guess what? They threw them all in there. A group of probably like 50, if you're thinking about like how many guys that was, plus their wife and however many kids there is. That's a lot of people. It says in the Bible that they threw them in there before they hit the ground. The lions had ate them up. That's what the Bible says. So it wasn't that the lions wasn't hungry. That's why they didn't eat Daniel. Or it wasn't that there was just a couple, or maybe Daniel found like a little hiding spot, and that's how he got away with not being eaten. God made them lions. He can shut their mouth. They couldn't even open their mouth. Couldn't do nothing to Daniel if God didn't want them to. So they were dead. And from then on, King Darius worshipped the God of Daniel. But there's a little bit more. There's like some more dreams and blase about in the book of Daniel. But let's talk about what we can learn. What can we learn in 2020 about in our lives here where we ain't getting thrown in no lion's den? Like, we ain't doing that now. Like, what? What can we learn from anything in the Old Testament? Okay, this is from the Old Testament. Jesus had not even, they didn't even think about Jesus coming to the earth yet. What can we learn from that? Okay, first of all, let's talk about Daniel's 3 friends. They knew what they believed. And no matter what everybody around them was doing, that's what they stuck to what they believed. Okay? So I can have 20 people that I really care about, and I can go hang out with them. And even though I love those people with all my heart, they can bust out a blunt of weed or a 6-pack. And because my conviction in my heart is that I don't do that, I can get up and be like, well, I love y'all. It's time for me to go home. And I'm not hating on y'all, but I'm going to leave. Or you can insert any scenario into what I just said, okay? Your conviction on your life and what God has asked you to do and how God has asked you to act, and, you know, the things that God has asked you to listen to or not listen to, or watch or not watch, that doesn't change based on who you're around or anything, okay? And I promise you that if you lay something down or some people down and walk away from them because they are not servicing anything good in your life, God will give you something else. I really walked away from everybody that I knew, not because I didn't love them, but because I knew that they were not on the walk with me. They weren't ready. Maybe they weren't called to be a Christian, whatever. That's fine. I got to worry about me and what God asked me to do. And when I did, there was a small period of time where I was alone. And it was a little bit of me looking at God like, God, I still kind of want to have some friends. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to be by myself. And then guess what? God gave me an even bigger group of friends that talk about God with me and worship God with me. Guess where I'm going tonight? To the park, the public park, for my kids to play with a group of about 20 other kids, and we're going to sit there and study the Bible together in the little thingy, And then when we're done, we're going to sing. And if there's people at the park, we don't care. If they want to look at us funny, cool. If y'all want to record us, cool. If y'all want to join in and sing with us, even better. Either way, that's what we're going to do tonight at 5:30. Okay? So, another thing that we learn from Daniel is that when you are faithful to God, he is faithful to you. Okay? And honey, excuse you, someone just called me. God being faithful to you is what you want. Okay? That means anything that you go through. Imagine someone telling you they're throwing you into a den of lions right now. That is the only thing we can equivalent that to right now is being thrown into prison. That's the worst that could happen to us right now. Or someone saying, all right, you've been sentenced to the electric chair. Like, that's the worst. That's basically what happened to Daniel. He walked up in there like, all right. Like, I already know, like, either God is going to deliver me from this, period, or he ain't, and I'm about to go be with Jesus. Like, either way, I'm cool. I'm chilling. That is how you should be. And that is hard. Let's not act like it ain't. It's hard. But that is how you should be. So I used to really think that. I used to really only read the New Testament of my Bible because that was relevant. I wanted to hear about Jesus. I wanted to see what Jesus did in his life. Like, I wanted to see what Jesus said and, like, how Jesus acted. I wanted to hear the miracles and, like, all that, which I still do. I really, for a long time, like the first about 4 years of my Christianity, felt like I couldn't relate or, like, learn anything from the Old Testament. Let me tell y'all. The last Bible story that I told y'all and this one is both from the Old Testament. And they're fire. And there's so much to be learned. Because, honestly, they're just like us. The people in the New Testament got to walk with Jesus. They got to see all the stuff he did. Like, if y'all ain't believing in Jesus, something wrong with y'all. Like, what? The people in the Old Testament are just like us. They just had to be like, there's a God. I believe in him with my heart. It's called faith. Listen, I have on my leg Hebrews 11:1. Hebrews 11:1 is faith is the substance of things unseen, the evidence of things hoped for. That is the definition of faith. I just did a duet with this guy where he's like, I hate it when people don't believe in God. Like, do you believe in air? Do you see air? No, but you sure don't wake up and be like, man, I hope when I walk into this room later, there's some air in there for me to breathe. You just know that there's gonna be. And that's how I feel about God. Honestly, and your only other choice is to believe that everything just got made, like people just showed up. What y'all believe in? To believe in anything else other than a creator takes way more faith. So y'all tripping if y'all don't believe in God, honestly. And I just love y'all. I know that I don't even have my makeup done right now. I really don't even have my makeup done. I'm trying. I'm almost done. But the story of Daniel and his friends is so good. And there's so much to be learned from it. If y'all do not, I know a lot of y'all are moms, and I get it. Even, like, my kids are a little bit older, like, they can kind of, like, put their own clothes on and stuff like that. But if y'all still doing the most, or if you work a full-time job, whatever, and you do not have time to, like, sit down for a couple hours and read your Bible, I feel that. Some of us have ADD and can't, like, I'd be reading it, and I'm like, great, now I just read that for 10 minutes, and, like, my brain was over here, and what did it say? I'm like that, too. Not because I don't want to know what it said. I'm just squirrel brain. Get this app. It's called Bible Is. It's a little red square. It literally reads the Bible to you out loud. Okay? And the only reason this one is good, because there's a bunch that read the Bible out loud to you. But they're literally like Alexa's voice. Like a robot reading it to you. And ain't nobody trying to hear that. But this one is like dramatized. So it's like they're reading it, and then when it gets another character, like, so in this one, I was just listening to it read Daniel to me. So, like, King Nebuchadnezzar has a voice, and then Daniel has a different voice, and then when he's mad, he has a different voice. And, like, that is like watching a movie or listening to a movie. And that, your brain will remember. That, you'll be like, man, I've done read that in the Bible 3 times, but, like, my brain didn't click and realize that that's what happened. Or that someone was upset when I read that. Because, you know what I mean? It's so much better. And it's free. The app is free. So you can be like, you know what? I read the whole book of Daniel today. And you didn't have to sit still with your toddler climbing on your face to read it. It being read to you and you reading it is the same thing. Okay? If you want to consume the Word of God, you can. There are ways, people. It's 2020. Like, we have it so made right now. We have it so made. There's not only that, but, like, people talk crap about social media and, like, oh, you waste so much time on social media. Do you know how many great connections I have to other children of God? I live in a small town, like, super small. Do you know how many great connections I have to other children of God that I would never meet? Never. I would have never met y'all if I wasn't on social media. I got on TikTok, which I didn't honestly thought was going to be stupid. I liked one Christian video. Now, when I get on there, I don't even see nothing but people singing to God, making videos about God, sharing stuff about God. It's straight up just Christian content on my TikTok. And it's awesome. Now I'm like, I literally cried the other day because there was like just hundreds upon hundreds of people younger than me, people older than me, and I'm like realizing that the body of Christ is a lot bigger than, because I live in a small town, so you see all the bad in the world right now, and you're like, meh, like, are there a lot more people like us that really just are out here fighting on this side? And there are, y'all. There are. And it makes my heart happy to see them. And man, you can be on some negative crap on social media, that's for sure. But you don't have to. You do not have to. Hey, Deanna, I miss you. Hey, Jamie, I'm almost done. I'm really just like doing the most. I get on here and do lives that I'm like excited about and have a lot to say, and then I like didn't even get my makeup done, so I'm behind. But I'm done. I'm just gonna put some lipstick on and get off here. But I love y'all. I hope y'all learned something about Daniel that you didn't already know, like that you didn't learn at VBS when you were 7. You know what I mean? But have a good day. If you don't have anything to do at 5:30, we are going to be at Fred Dedman Park at 5:30, eating some food, reading the Bible, singing, no matter who's watching. So have a good day.